I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Chris Vermeulen. His website is thegoldandOilGuy.com. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim.
Is oil hanging on to around $50 a barrel longer than we expected it would?
No, not really. We've talked about this a couple of times in the past, that really about a year ago, we talked about it lingering down here for a long time. Crude oil had this massive bear market, huge sell-off from $110 down to $27 a barrel. And we talked about, we were comparing the energy sector stocks because so many people several months ago were getting really excited, or actually it was in 2015, people were getting really excited about the energy sector. Should I buy? Should I buy? And you and I were talking about how, if you compare what's going on with oil, how the energy stocks performed back in 08, 09, that, yes, oil and energy stocks are, they look like they're putting in a major bottom, but they're going to stay down here for a long time. Here we are a year later, and we're still trading sideways with the price of crude oil between that kind of $30 and that $50 per barrel level, and it's been consolidating. And I think it could still stay down here for several more months. There's potential it could stay down here for a long time. Commodities do have a tendency to base and drag out. They can go sideways for many years. I don't think oil will do that specifically, but we're seeing a major bottoming formation in crude oil and a bunch of other commodities as well. And who knows how long they'll stay in those basing patterns. The key is when they break to the upside and start to rally out of these basing patterns, that's the big opportunity. So, if you're stepping way back, looking at the weekly chart, going back several years, we can see this beautiful bottoming formation in crude oil forming. It's had a nice pullback in the last 2 weeks. It's a little bit oversold. It's coming into a support zone, and we're likely going to see a bounce. And really, there's not a whole lot we want to do here as an investor until we see it break above that 50 and close above there. And that'll be a signal that we could be off to the races to a new massive bull market in crude oil. But until then, I think it's going to continue to trade sideways in this range here.
Now, what does this do to people who have invested? Are they looking for dividends?
Well, yeah, typically, energy stocks, they pay, in utilities, things like that, they pay some half-decent dividends if you're into the equity side of things. Really, the best play, in my opinion, is to kind of just sit tight for the moment. The energy sector and oil and natural gas are all very close to breaking out and starting a new bull market. If you're a long-term investor, putting your money in here is probably fine. It may sit dormant. It could sit dormant for months or possibly even years before actually all these things take off. But I think long-term, these are great opportunities for the energy sector. But it's nothing imminent. We're still potentially months and months away before we see a massive break and a run to the upside.
It seems almost every week there's talk among oil-producing countries of freezing production, maybe cutting back a bit, and then nothing ever comes out of those talks.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of hot air. It seems to be all it is. But, I think, that stuff definitely plays into the role. You follow crude oil and what, OPEC is saying. You see these bounces on the news and things like that. Really there's, it's going to take some time for the damage that's been done to crude oil to finally put in a bottom, which it's doing now, and for that downward and sideways momentum to finally shift and start to turn up, and for early kind of investors to start getting into crude oil and to start buying and hedging for long-term higher prices. That momentum slowly needs to shift, and it feels and looks like it's shifting. but we're not seeing the feeding frenzy yet. We haven't broken out, and everybody's piling in, trying to lock in contracts of crude oil to keep their prices, their fuel prices, or energy consumption prices down, looking forward a few years. So there's going to be that time when it does break, and everybody's going to start piling on, buying crude oil contracts to try and limit their costs down the road. But again, we're not there yet.
Is there optimism in the industry that the pipelines through BC to the coast will be built? Now the Prime Minister has announced that they're going to put $1.5 billion into oil spill cleanup or prevention efforts.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't really follow what's going on with the pipelines or anything like that, so I can't really answer it.
Of course, you need pipelines to get your product to where people want it or need it.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's always going to be a need for the pipelines and maintenance and the leakage. I was talking to somebody several months ago, and they're starting a new company that does oil line leaking cleanup crew, and they've got all these almost like drones that fly out, and they go across, and they got these thermo imaging, and they can see down to see where there's leaks and how much it's seeped across, and they go in and they do this stuff. It's crazy how much money is spent and how many leaks and how big some of these oil leaks are that you never ever hear of. In the middle of nowhere, through marshes, through, all these beautiful green lands, just these massive oil leaks, and we never hear a word about them. And it's pretty scary. So there's huge money in definitely new pipelines and maintenance of pipelines, and they definitely need to be maintained, because you should see some of these photos I've seen of the damages that crude oil has done to these beautiful reserves, more or less, that it's going through.
But according to the TV ads I see from Trans Mountain and other oil transmission people, it's all good. All their workers care about is making sure everything runs perfectly, and they would never spill.
Oh yeah, and they always show beautiful, fresh, new pipelines through perfect fields of crops. It's like, oh yeah, well, that's marketing for you.
Of course, too, the pipelines they're trying to replace would be older than Elvis.
Yeah, and those are the ones you don't see. Those are the ones that are leaking, and they're way back in the middle of nowhere where people don't see them, and all that stuff. So, it's a massive, never-ending job. By the time you fix one place, another place needs replaced.
Right, so new pipelines should have better technology to prevent spills.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. There's no doubt that the new pipeline stuff will definitely improve, the flow and, reduce damages.
Of course, there's nothing that will prevent an errant backhoe from taking out one of those new pipelines. It happened right here in Burnaby several years ago, where somebody misread a map, or the maps weren't right, and they dug up a major oil pipeline, and they literally drowned a neighborhood in crude oil, and all the houses, I don't know, maybe up to 100 were so contaminated they had to destroy the houses, and now it's a park overlooking the refinery.
Yeah, well, who do you call, right? You dig up an oil line, like, it would take them probably hours to get it shut off, and the amount that's flowing through those pipes, the gallons per minute, if you look at those, you look at like just the 6-inch pipe. 6-inch pipe can move like 700 gallons of water. I don't know how it works with oil, probably a lot less, but you're looking at those big pipes that can be like a foot or 2 or 3 feet in diameter. Think how many thousands of gallons could be gushing out of there. It's scary. That's why when there's a leak or something like that, it's just extreme.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after the break.
GEM International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the 4th largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. GEM International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. Chris, what's happening with gold? Just last week it had topped $1,300 for the first time in quite a while, and now it's on the way down again. Is this due to the U.S. election or something else at work here?
Oh, there's a lot of things at work here. We had a really strong pop in the U.S. dollar that created a big drop in commodities and precious metals more specifically. But really, gold, commodities across the board, if we look at the main ones like gold, silver, even gold miners, and we look at natural gas and crude oil, they all have these major multi-year kind of basing formations that have started and that are currently in place. Energy are currently trading in the lower end of their basing formation. They still have quite a bit more work to break out. You look at precious metals like gold, silver, and miners, and they're trading in the upper end of their basing formation. So they're getting very close to breaking out and starting a big run. And, once we do break out of this pattern, we could see very big potential upside in the precious metals side. But right now, we've seen that, a recent sharp drop in crude oil. We went from about $13.75 or so all the way down to $12.50. We've been forming a little bit of a bearish pattern here. We had a nice pop a couple of days ago. It sold back down today and yesterday. And I think we could see gold fall down a little bit more. It's trading at $12.75 right now. We might see it have a little flush down to about the 1200 mark, which would bring us down to a key moving average, a critical pivot zone for gold, an area where it'll find there's significant support. And if it does have that pullback, that'll be a very nice controlled consolidation / kind of pause for the market, a nice little 5-wave correction. And usually the market moves in waves of series of 5 waves and it move into support. So I think we're very close. One little downdraft here to the 1200 for gold. I think it'll be a screaming buy for long-term and short-term plays. It should have a very strong bounce off that level. But overall, precious metals still look very bullish, but they're still in their basing formation. And as we talked about with crude oil and commodities in general, commodities can base for a long time, not just months. We're talking multiple years. And right now, gold is trading still below its 2013 kind of pivot high in the later half of 2013. And so we've been kind of going 1, 2, 3. We're over 3 years in this basing formation for gold, and we still have yet to break out. It still has to really close above the $1,400 per ounce. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but commodities, the main ones, are all building these beautiful basing patterns, and eventually we're going to see these shift. We're going to see them break to the upside, and we're going to have another massive commodity run across the board.
Now, gold, of course, is rife with all kinds of speculation in what kind of ways it's going to go and what kind of prices we're going to see. One person told me they thought the price could drop as low as $400 an ounce. And then, of course, there's others who say, just around the corner, $5,000, $10,000 an ounce. What's happening?
Yeah, well, those are all real extreme situations, right? If we have, depending how the financial markets and currencies, like all these countries have got so many issues that if they start going domino effect and currencies start collapsing and people start flooding to either one country or one currency or all the above, complete financial chaos, that would send gold through the roof. I mean, you're looking at the 5, 10. Some people, I've even heard $25,000 per ounce gold. So, those are extreme situations. Could they happen? Possibly. But you really need a complete collapse of the financial system where people don't know what to do, but they just want to hold chunks of gold and silver, rounds or bullion in their hands that they know has value. And on the flip side, a big breakdown to $400 gold, I don't know what would really cause that because, it costs $1,000 to $1,400 to get it out of the ground in most cases. So anything below the cost to get it out, typically we should see it rebound back up. And, I just don't really see gold breaking down in that big way. It may go down. You never know. It could go down, test the 1,000 mark or 900 mark, which was a big breakout or a big consolidation mark back in 2008, 2009. But I don't really see the big downside to it. I see more of it basing and trading sideways here until it can have the energy to break and close above that $1,400 per ounce mark, at which point we're going to see traders and investors piling in to catch the next big wave.
Well, I've heard this year that actual gold production is down, even though more companies seem to be getting into the production business.
Yeah, it seems like it's getting tougher and tougher to get, quality gold deposits and get it out of the ground. So there's a lot of big mining companies where they'd have, some, like silver as a secondary type commodity that they can get. A lot of mining companies have gone down, so a lot of production has just dropped. It's not that they were specific silver mining companies, but again, a lot of companies that are into the mining have it as a kind of extra income stream because they can sort it out. And those companies, a lot of them have gone under, and there's been a lot of bankruptcies. So that's really killed on supply of some precious metals. And, it's eventually I think it'll catch up. Right now, gold is still in a phase where so many people piled in 2010 all the way to 2013. People were piling in, buying it. It was so hot. The whole world, you couldn't, CNBC, all the financial stations had gold on their ticker. Everything was gold, 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 gold. Everybody was buying it, and now everybody got burned. So it takes a long time for everyone to finally say, maybe I'll get back into gold. It's, I've lost almost everything I put into it, but maybe I'll get back into it. It's just a big, the markets are just waves of emotions, and right now people are still not interested really in gold, and they're still licking their wounds from a few years ago.
Is it, too, that gold has all this sentimental value, emotional value, not just its product as perhaps currency?
It does. It definitely carries a lot of emotional value. It's really neat because when you do buy gold and silver and you've got the bars or the rounds or coins in your hand, it does feel pretty neat to have that. And there's something about it. There's something about, once you start buying physical gold and you hold it and you see it and you have it stored away, you actually become pretty addicted. You just want to keep buying more and more. There's something about it that has a draw. And so it does have a lot of value that way. But again, I don't see that value diminishing or falling in anything significant. I think we just fluctuate here in gold prices, and I don't see us, anything extreme to the downside.
If you were investing in gold, should you also be pocketing some silver?
Yeah, I like silver. I like them both. I think I prefer silver over gold for more of my capital, simply because I think it's got much more upside potential. Technology uses a ton of silver, solar panels, everything else. And, that whole technology side is just really on the infancy stage when it comes to solar panels and how big it could really take off and all these other things that are going to demand silver. So I like silver a lot. I think it's got great upside potential. Gold is kind of the good old steady, more conservative play, obviously. But I think you need to hold them both. You definitely need them both.
What about Tesla coming up with these roof shingles that are actually solar panels? So it doesn't alter the look of your building at all, but all of a sudden you're generating your own power.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm building some units ourselves here, and I was looking at the different solar options, and I was looking at the solar panels, those shingles. It is really interesting stuff. I think it's a brilliant idea, very costly still, but overall, like the future is, it's really going to be solar. It's so much. I don't know how much more efficient it is than wind energy, but the thing is they're building skyscrapers where the glass has got solar panels built right into it. So the entire face of a building, 70 stories high, can be one giant solar panel. And if you convert and use, fuel-efficient light bulbs at the LEDs and everything else, man, it's just amazing what we can do with solar without drastically changing the look and feel of the surroundings in our buildings themselves. So I think solar is an incredible option for energy going forward.
Well, also, too, where do you see declining power bills? Hydroelectric companies across the country are planning to boost rates 9% or more a year. When you start looking at that, perhaps having some solar cells makes sense.
Oh, I think it does. I I do too. It's incredible how the rates, how they keep hiking, and it's scary. It's almost like they're combating. They're trying to, they almost are threatened, so they're jacking their price up to try and gouge while they can before people get off the grid or minimize their grid use by putting their own panels on the roof with a battery backup. Tesla, I think, has got this massive battery house backup, so it charges during the day, and then your house flips over and runs off this big battery system that converts to your circuit breakers, and during peak hours, you're using up the battery, and the battery's almost drained. You just go back to, it flips automatically back to the grid. So, there's all these ways that, solar can really save us a ton of money, and we can really reduce our grid exposure and the cost that hydro, that we have for hydro. But solar stuff is still pretty expensive. Like the batteries, costs hopefully will come down sooner than later, but it's coming around. Technology is coming, and it's going to make the world a better place, I think.
Chris, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, always a pleasure, Jim.
My guest has been Chris Vermeulen. His website is thegoldandOilGuy.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.